Ergo, allow me to report on some items that are taking place. The governor of California has announced that even if the irresponsible, unscientific, economy-crushing, life-crushing, kid-crushing rules are lifted, he will still retain emergency powers. I wrote over a year ago that we were living through a dress rehearsal for a police state, and I stand by that to this day. And I have never been known as a conspiratorial thinker or as a hysteric. I am the opposite. I hate hysteria. My life has been devoted to opposing it. However, what Democratic governors and mayors have done is as un-American as any act that I can think of in American history by any group of people. It is frightening that they got away with it. The college-educated are the greatest supporters of the idea that rulers can tell you what to do. Isn't that interesting? That really is interesting. Worthy of its own hour. Why are the college-educated the most ready to give up liberty? Why do they have the most contempt for liberty? The better your education, the more contempt you have for liberty. It's a fact, not an opinion. The only people who really think free speech should be curtailed are overwhelmingly college-educated, not to mention graduate school. My column this week comes out tomorrow. My weekly column is the best single thing Americans could do to save this country, and that is to remove their children from schools. It doesn't even have to be permanent. What if everybody, I know it's not going to happen. What if everybody took their kid out of college for a year? You understand, colleges have two interests. Wokeism/leftism is one, and the other is money. Money is actually even more important. I'm not sure. I take that back. It's one of those times that I'm contradicting myself in mid-sentence. Not contradicting, opposing. I don't know that money is more important to them than leftism. Leftism is a religion. People sacrifice for religion. Is money more important to a believing Christian than Christianity? No. Is money more important to a believing Jew than Judaism? No. Is money more important to a believing Muslim than Islam? No. So I wouldn't say that money is more important to leftists than leftism. But I do know that colleges yearn for money. They have to, after all, hire more diversity deans. Remember the data I read to you? So one of the dilemmas of doing the show is I bring extremely important data to you, and then I don't repeat them again. That's redundant. I don't repeat them. I don't state them again. Because I already did, but more or less everybody forgot them, including me. I don't know the data, but I know the fact that they exist. How much more money is being spent now on deans of diversity than on professors? It is more important to be left than to teach. Anyway, leftism and teaching are in contradiction with one another. So the man announces back to Governor Newsom of California, hey, I want to retain emergency powers. In other words, untested powers. Why have they not, in a year and a half, gone to court? Have his powers gone unchallenged? Do you know the answer to that? Have they been tested in court? Mr. Producer?
The emergency powers?
Yes, the emergency powers. The ease with which liberty is killed must be shocking to me. The land of the free. Liberty, one of the three mottos of this country. How many years ago did I say that the American Trinity was liberty, pluribus unum, and in God we trust? 20 years ago? And what is it that the left loathes? Liberty, e pluribus unum, and in God we trust. May I make an appeal to read my book, Still the Best Hope? It's the best explanation of the left and America that I know of in one book. There are many wonderful ones, but this is the best. It was a New York Times bestseller, but if everybody read it, the country would be different. It's called Still the Best Hope. It explains the left. If your kid didn't go to college next year and read that book, that would be one of the best years that your child could possibly have for the development of his or her mind and sense of what it means to be an American. Caitlyn Jenner is running for of California, right? She has said that she is one of the candidates in the recall election of Governor Newsom, and I have nothing but goodwill to this person, who at least had the courage, which the vast majority of Americans do not have, to say that when a biological male competes against a biological female, he's cheating. She is cheating. Okay? Caitlyn Jenner has said that. Caitlyn Jenner is exactly that, a biological male who is a female, identifies as a female. And that's fine. I don't have any argument with that. You take a female name, you look like a female, and otherwise appear to the world as a female. I am not going to denigrate your change, your choice, your transition. But I will not lie, and it takes a liar to deny, and lying is the essence of leftism. If there are no lies, there's no left. There's liberalism and there's conservatism. There's no leftism. You have to lie to say that it's fair to biological women for biological men to compete with them. I don't know if the Tokyo Olympics will take place, but I have told you that New Zealand appears to be ready to send a transgender female to the weightlifting competition. So a biological male will compete in weightlifting, one of the more obvious areas where women cannot compete with men. So, of course, there is an answer, but people are not fighters. The answer is for no women weightlifters in the world to go to Tokyo, or go to Tokyo and then not show up and embarrass this narcissist. He's a narcissist. That's all he is. That too is essential to leftism, narcissism. How you feel is all that matters. How it affects others is irrelevant. So here is Caitlyn Jenner, whom I have just honored for taking that position, making a truly stupid statement. Go ahead. Okay, that's why it's stupid. Yes, if you're a Republican, you have to think this way. Otherwise, what does Republican mean? I can't think of a more foolish comment. If Republican doesn't mean thinking a certain way, what does it mean? If Democrat means inclusive without thinking a certain way, and Republican means inclusive without thinking a certain way, then there's no meaning to the word Republican and no meaning to the word Democrat. They all have no way of thinking and are inclusive. Why have two parties? That, in a nutshell, that is exactly what we've had in the Republican Party most of my life. Oh, just because you're Republican doesn't mean you think a certain way. There you got it. The essence of effervescence is its quintessence. Back in a moment.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Can you discuss that, please? It's to do with contract law, correct?
Right. So there's this case, United States versus Throckmorton, and there was in that opinion, the phrase fraud vitiates everything, which basically says we go back to square one. And the idea of that is that if you and I enter into a contract and I approach this in bad faith and there is fraud.
When I'm signing it.
Yes,
It's like a marriage contract in the Catholic faith. If you go in as a woman, knowing that I'm never going to have children and not telling your husband, that is a reason to nullify the wedding as if it never actually occurred. So people are saying
as if it never occurred.
So now they're saying, well, it applies to the election, right?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
So I want to get through a very important piece of news that happened. The Pelosi Commission. So for the last couple months, Nancy Pelosi, I think, has been intentionally slow-walking this. I think that Nancy Pelosi has been intentionally dragging her feet for months because Nancy Pelosi wanted a commission to look into January 6th, despite the fact that every single department of law enforcement right now is looking into it. She wanted this to be a later authorized commission so it would go into the election year of 2022 and hurt Republicans. So she did not want this to be an overnight thing. So she pretended as if she was negotiating with Republicans on this commission. And the more information that we get about January 6th, the more it looks like an interruption, not an insurrection. And I'm not supporting the smashing of windows or the assaulting of police officers. You lay your hand on a police officer, you should go to prison for a very long time. I'm not minimizing that. At the same time, who killed Ashley Babbitt? And why were there no charges against the person that fired a shot at Ashley Babbitt, who was unarmed? I thought that was the big mantra of BLM Incorporated. So for months now, Republicans have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi. When I say Republicans, I mean someone who is not even a Republican, someone who voted for impeachment. And so the commission is supposed to be like a 9/11 style commission to look in to the January 6th incident. But we all know how these things happen. This would be a Mueller style counsel that would be a roaming prosecutor.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Hey, folks, I'm talking to Kevin McCullough. Tell us, what did you make of Kamala Harris when she posted "Have a great weekend" or something like that? The way I take it sometimes is I don't want to be like the left. When the people on the left say something really stupid, I don't want to pile on as though they're the devil. So when she said "have a nice weekend," we know it's because she's ignorant and it's bad as the vice president not to understand what Memorial Day is all about. But I kind of feel like I almost don't know what do I expect from these people, that she's never given a thought to Memorial Day. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And I think that
Yeah, I'm in that box. If you're a conservative, you should think this way. If you're a leftist, you should think this way. If you're a Christian, you should think this way. If you're a Jew, you should think this way. Not that there can't be any differences. Of course there can. But you have a shared outlook on life. Or as the Germans put it, we have not adopted the term Weltanschauung, worldview. If there's no such thing as a Republican worldview, then Republican means nothing. And this goes, there's no doubt in my mind that there are a lot of people who heard this statement of Caitlyn Jenner and thought, that's the kind of Republican we need. One who doesn't believe Republican means thinking a certain way. Does Republican mean smaller government? Just as a general question. Does it mean that? Does it mean that you should stand for the national anthem and the flag? What does it mean? Anyway, this is the age in which we live. You know, I have a story here from last week that I did not bring to your attention, and I just thought it would be worthy of noting. Not long, but I consider this indicative of something, and I wonder if you will. I'm going to ask the living martyr who knows me and my thinking as well as anyone on earth, including me. So this is from NBC TV in Washington. This is the headline. Maserati driver sought in D.C. road rage shooting of woman with kids. So what do you think what rule of life do I see in that headline? Or even better, what rule of life do I see undone by that headline? Thank you. That's right. Poverty causes crime. Maserati drivers.
Somebody in a Maserati?
Somebody in a Maserati. That's the headline. Maserati driver sought at D.C. road rage shooting. It's not funny. It's just... I told you, I think it was last week, worth repeating, two things very early in my life, one in elementary school, one in high school, told me I would never be a leftist. I always considered myself a liberal, but I never would be on the left. One was this, that poverty causes violent crime. And I looked at my father's parents, who were extremely poor, unemployed through the Depression and afterwards, an unemployed tailor. If my father didn't support them, then I don't know how they would have. I mean, they wouldn't have died, but I don't know how they would have lived. And I remember thinking as a child, I mean, I was really a child. I was under 10, I think. Gee, would Grandpa murder? And I thought the idea was preposterous. He's poor. Why wouldn't he murder? And I knew the answer. Because I didn't know the word values, because I thought then, he's a religious Jew. Religious Jews don't murder. Now you say, well, there was a religious Jew who murdered. Okay. If you can't make generalizations, then you can't understand life. That was one. The grandiosity of the lie that poverty causes violent crime. It's hard to overstate what a lie it is. But the left is built on lies. That's one of them. And then the next one was that they were not opposed to communism. They were not pro-communist. Well, many leftists were, but not all leftists were. But they were not anti-communist, which meant that they didn't hate evil, and that means I couldn't be on the left because I hate evil. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that little one with you. Poverty causes crime. All right. As a biggie for you from the New York Times. This article is so good that it's an outlier in the New York Times. Were you shocked? Because you sent it to me, and it was a long article, and I read every word. Were you shocked at the New York Times article on the ACLU? You were too, yeah. Once a bastion of free speech, the ACLU faces an identity crisis. This is another one of the many articles coming out now about the difference between liberal and left. And I have been saying this for years. I've written it. I even did a video for PragerU on the differences between left and liberal. A series. Is that right? I did a series? Wow. All right. And many good-willed people listening to this show write to me and write in comments on my columns, you know, I really like Dennis, or Dennis is usually right. Boy, is he wrong on this. There's no difference between liberals and leftists. Do you not realize how important it is? The only way to save this country is to teach liberals that they have nothing in common with leftists. That is the only way. There is no other way out of the destructive consequences of leftism in every area of American life. Here's an example. Is the ACLU liberal or left? It's become a leftist organization. It was once a far liberal. But the biggest thing animating the ACLU was free speech. Not anymore. That's what this article in the New York Times is about. I read sections to you. An organization that has defended the First Amendment rights of Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan is split by an internal debate over whether supporting progressive causes is more important. There you go. The ACLU has a split between left and liberal. Liberals believe in free speech, leftists do not. Why is that not the most obvious difference in the world? Is there anything more important than free speech? I can't think of one. I cannot think of one. It was supposed to be the celebration of a grand career, as the American Civil Liberties Union presented a prestigious award to the longtime lawyer David Goldberger. He had argued one of its most famous cases defending the free right speech of Nazis in the 1970s to march in Skokie, Illinois, home to many Holocaust survivors. Now, by the way, here you had a Jew defending Nazi rights to march in Skokie. That's because he was a liberal. That's what liberals believe. We'll be back in a moment.
Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
Streaming on Salem Now.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. We know exactly what's going on here. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Kept telling myself, this is a guy who practically, literally and figuratively has been face down in the gutter. And this is a guy whose life, was at one point kind of hanging in the balance. So I know this year has been tough for you, but it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different, so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? And I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence because I have such confidence. I'm never gonna give up. When things that I believe in, I'm gonna stand firm. I'm not gonna I'm not going to buckle up to the cancel culture and the pressure, and that's where great things come out of things. When you look back on things in life, I look back on things that happened to me. I look back and wow, if that hadn't happened, I might not be where I'm at now. So
right.
I look back and I use those things as they were character builders. And
by the way, you I want people to read about your story and your character. This book, What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO. You were gracious enough to let us auction off some of these books for the signed books for our Prison Fellowship Angel Tree campaign to send kids to summer camp. These are the children of prisoners in America who for $200 are sponsored for an entire week to go to summer camp, not only to play, to be outside with other kids, but also hear the gospel.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
What makes the current ruling class in America different? My other very good friend, who also does a great job at Breitbart.com, has a new book out called Breaking the News. Alex Marlow, he filled in for us last week. I encourage all of you to check out that book, Breaking the News. Alex Marlow has been teasing this for months, saying that there is a new George Soros, saying that there's a new person on the scene that is spending just massive sums of money, almost unfathomable amounts of money, to try and remake America in the image that they so desire. I've been trying to get it out of Alex for months of who this person is, but he was very disappointed.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I'm reading to you from the New York Times an amazing article about the civil war within the ACLU. Are they left or are they liberal? The left doesn't care about free speech. The ACLU historically has. So it tells about David Goldberger, who's getting a big award from the ACLU for his long-time service. And he argued the case for the Nazis being allowed to speak, to march in Skokie, Illinois in the 1970s. All liberal groups did, even Jewish groups did. In America, you have free speech, even people who want to murder us. Okay. So, Mr. Goldberger, now 79, adored the ACLU, but at his celebratory luncheon in 2017, he listened to one speaker after another and felt a growing unease. A law professor argued that the free speech rights of the far right were not worthy of defense by the ACLU, and that black people, they capitalized black in the New York Times. I don't. I wrote a column opposing that. Experienced offensive speech far more viscerally than white allies. You hear that? This is the world of the left, its feelings. Blacks feel bad when they hear far-right speech. Jews feel bad when they hear Nazi speech. So what? We're going to base free speech on how you feel? You narcissist? Narcissism is central to leftism. I knew this as a kid. I saw the leftists, the way they destroyed things at Columbia in the 1970s when I was a student there. That black people experienced offensive speech far more viscerally than white allies. In the hallway outside, an ACLU official argued it was personally legitimate for his lawyers to decline to defend hate speech. Mr. Goldberger, a Jew who defended the free speech of those whose views he found repugnant, felt profoundly discouraged. let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, that under the word naive in dictionaries is the word synonymous with liberal. Liberals are so naive about the left, the country may be destroyed because of liberal naivete. It's a desire to remain a child. When an adult is naive, it is willfully so. Child is born naive, but an adult being naive has decided to remain a child. So Mr. Goldberger didn't know what was happening to his ACLU all these years. I could have told him, but he doesn't listen to the show. We listen to them. They don't listen to us. But to his credit, he got disgusted by 2017. I got the sense it was more important for ACLU staff to identify with clients and progressive causes than to stand on principle. No manure, Sherlock. That's exactly the left. You summarized it. Liberals are leaving the First Amendment behind. I should tweet that out. That's right. For those of you who still don't think there's a difference between liberal and left because liberals vote for the left, here's a perfect example. A major ACLU lawyer saying the ACLU and liberals are leaving the First Amendment behind. The organization said its former director, Ira Glasser, by the way, for the record, I debated Ira Glasser in the 1970s. I was sort of a kid. I will say to you, with all the debates I've done in my life, it was the ugliest. There was no close second. I felt I needed a shower after that debate. That's exactly what I said to friends. I need a shower. It was just slime. It's not here or there. It's just, I know who the guy is. It's not just a name to me. The organization said its former director, Ira Glasser, risks surrendering its original and unique mission in pursuit of progressive glory. There are a lot of organizations fighting eloquently for racial justice and immigrant rights, Mr. Glasser said, but there's only one ACLU. By the way, this is Glasser saying this. I'm happy. That is a content-neutral defender of free speech. I fear we're in danger of losing that. The only thing more amazing about the Civil War in the ACLU is that the New York Times is writing about it. The whole thing is pinch-worthy. Ladies and gentlemen, relief factor is as close to miraculous as you get in science. I find it amazing after my workouts, which are a form of masochism on my part. After my workouts, I often have some joint or muscle that hurts. I take a relief factor, bye pain. It's that good. Now, obviously, people have chronic pain, and it's that good for many of them, too. And here's the story. They say it'll work within, 3 weeks. Or it won't work. Probably won't work. So for 3 weeks, it costs $20 in shipping. Give it a try. ReliefFactor.com. Back in a moment.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
What makes the current ruling class in America different? My other very good friend, who also does a great job at Breitbart.com, has a new book out called Breaking the News. Alex Marlow, he filled in for us last week. I encourage all of you to check out that book, Breaking the News. Alex Marlow has been teasing this for months, saying that there is a new George Soros, saying that there's a new person on the scene that is spending just massive sums of money, almost unfathomable amounts of money, to try and remake America in the image that they so desire. I've been trying to get it out of Alex for months of who this person is, but he was very disciplined. I got to give Alex credit. He said, nope, I am not going to tell you who this person is.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
So I know this year has been tough for you, but it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO, and I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence, because I have such confidence. I'm never gonna give up. When things that I believe in, I'm gonna stand firm. I'm not gonna buckle up to the cancel culture and the pressure, and that's where great things come out of things. When you look back on things in life, I look back on things that happened to me. I look back and go, wow, if that hadn't happened, I might not be where I'm at now. So
right.
I look back and I use those things as they were character builders, and,
Yeah.
And
by the way, you want I want people to read about your story and your character. This book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? You were gracious enough to let us auction off some of these books for the signed books for our Prison Fellowship Angel Tree campaign to send kids to summer camp.
All right, y'all. I have mentioned to you a number of times the Job Creators Network, probably one of the great heroes, not probably, one of the great heroes of our time. Let me add a side comment here that if you give up fighting, you have to answer to God. You have to answer to the founders, and you have to answer to all the dead at Normandy Beach. Okay? Just want to make that clear. Because I get this a lot. Well-intentioned people say, oh, they're giving up, we've lost. You don't have a moral right to give up. Okay? I want to make that clear. So one of the people who take that seriously, one of the groups, is the Job Creators Network. I didn't even know this. Did you know that there's a hearing about the Atlanta suing the Major League Baseball about the All-Star game? That will be, what's today's date? The 7th. On June 10th, there will be a hearing at the U.S. District Court, and the suit demands the immediate return of the All-Star game to Atlanta or establish a relief fund by the defendants of $100 billion for all the local small business owners that have been hurt. I could cry. This is so beautiful. I think of these people hurt by the left. Doesn't give a damn about them. By the way, Colorado, where they're moving it to, has more restrictive voting laws than Georgia. Colorado's black population is 9%. Atlanta's is 51%. There are 7.5 times more African-American-owned businesses in Georgia than Colorado. To help send a message to Major League Baseball and woke corporate America, please support the great folks at the Job Creators Network. This is not even an appeal for money. Just join up. Just join up. Go to supportjcn.com. JCN is Job Creators Network. Supportjcn.com. I love those people. We get back to the ACLU piece, but another thing I didn't bring to your attention was from another article last week. New York Times, Gaza conflict, or 2 weeks ago. Gaza conflict stokes identity crisis for young American Jews. Well, they're products of American Jewish life, that they have an identity crisis because Israel defends itself. But that's a separate issue. Listen to this one sentence from the article. Elisa Rubin, 26, who volunteers in Boston with If Not Now, a network of Jewish activists. I love that. Jewish activists, these are radical, unfortunately sick young Jews who want to end Jewish American support for Israeli occupation. Okay, that's the way they're innocuously described in the New York Times, but that's not my point. Listen to this. Has found protesting for the Palestinian cause to be its own form of religious observance. Is that a great line? My friends, many of you ask me, not many of you, pretty much all of you, at some point or another, at speeches, on radio, in email, why are Jews on the left? Here's the answer. When Jews leave Judaism, they don't leave religion. They make up a secular religion. That's the case. Jews don't know how not to be religious. Thousands of years of being the chosen people had a big effect on Jews. So when they leave Judaism, they make up another ism. And this is perfect. She has found, this young Jew who has found protesting for the Palestinians to be its own form of religious observance. New York Times. Want the date, folks? I'll give it to you. May 19th. There you go. That's right. All leftism is a form of religious observance. That's exactly what I've been telling you. It's a secular religion. Continuing with the ACLU, Rebecca McCrae, an ACLU editor, listened to the sharp tone of Mr. Grassley, a Republican, as he grilled the nominee, an ACLU lawyer who was nominated, and felt a flush of anger. She tweeted, tried to watch Vanita Gupta's confirmation hearing, but got too angry. Chuck Grassley survived COVID. This is an ACLU editor. She's unhappy that Grassley survived COVID. Mr. Romero, that is the head of the ACLU, who's a gay Hispanic, quickly apologized to Mr. Grassley's staff, but took no action against his staffer. Asked about Ms. McCrae, he responded, "She is highly valued by me." In another case, a police officer in Columbus, Ohio, fatally shot 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant. Remember that? As she tried to plunge a knife into another young black woman. The ACLU of Ohio tweeted, hashtag Columbus police murdered a 15-year-old black girl. These are examples in the New York Times of the ACLU just becoming another left-wing activist group with no interest in free speech, which is why it was founded. Less than 2 months after that terrible day in Charlottesville, Claire Gastanga, then the executive director of the ACLU chapter in Virginia, okay, let me get to that, walked on stage, and dozens of students who proclaimed themselves allied with Black Lives Matter approached with signs. Good, I like this, Ms. Castanga said. This illustrates very well, those were the last of her words that could be heard. ACLU, you protect Hitler too, that students chanted, setting up a line that stretched the width of the stage. They stood in front of the stage, and Ms. Gastanga, and for a half an hour blocked anyone in the audience from approaching and talking with her. She eventually left. The revolution, the students chanted, will not uphold the Constitution. Is that an important line for you to know about BLM and the left? We'll be back.
Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor pain-free studio.
I told Dennis this with the president of Prager the day of the Chauvin trial.
I'm sorry?
I I said I was telling you this, but
Streaming on Salem Now.
As Galileans, we witnessed his first miracle.
This is the most profound discovery in human history. This discovery proves that he is coming back.
Obama tore this country down. No one stood up to him. Nobody.
My parents didn't teach me that I was a victim.
And Uncle Tom is somebody who has sold out.
I will not pretend to be a victim in this country. I know that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
Most black people don't believe that other blacks can be independent, free thinkers.
When there's chaos, when there's pandemics, when there's riots, people think, where is God? God always manages to reemerge.
This Constitution is intended for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Can you discuss that, please? It's to do with contract law, correct?
Right. So there's this case, United States versus Throckmorton, and there was in that opinion, the phrase fraud vitiates everything, which basically says we go back to square one. And the idea of that is that if you and I enter into a contract and I approach this in bad faith and there is fraud.
When I'm signing it.
Yes, before.
It's like a marriage contract in the Catholic faith. If you go in as a woman, knowing that I'm never going to have children and not telling your husband, that is a reason to nullify the wedding as if it never actually occurred. So people are saying
never as if it never occurred.
So now they're saying, well, it applies to the election, right?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
So I want to get through a very important piece of news that happened. The Pelosi Commission. So for the last couple months, Nancy Pelosi, I think, has been intentionally slow-walking this. I think that Nancy Pelosi has been intentionally dragging her feet for months because Nancy Pelosi wanted a commission to look into January 6th, despite the fact that every single department of law enforcement right now is looking into it. She wanted this to be a later authorized commission, so it would go into the election year of 2022.
Hello, my friends. I'm Dennis Prager. ACLU is apparently riven by question, is it left or does it defend free speech? John in Chicago. Hello, John.
Hello, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask you about two instances in which I think you might, I perceive you as being hypocritical. I'm sure you'll disagree. One of them was just when I was on hold. So I'll ask you about that one first. You just mentioned an incident in which someone associated with the ACLU referred to the murder of a black girl who was wielding a knife. Because they used the term murder, they said the police had murdered that girl.
Yeah, that wasn't an AC. That was it a university who said that, or is it?
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
No. You may be right. I don't remember who said it. Was it?
Sorry. Yeah.
Maybe it was a lawyer at the ACLU. I think you're right. Go on.
Okay, but you were upset that they had referred to it as a murder. Is that not correct?
Correct.
I've heard you, without any hesitation and absent any legal determination, refer to police murdering the insurrectionist attacker Ashley Babbitt at the United States Capitol. How is it different?
because she wasn't about to murder anybody. In the case of Ma'Khia Bryant, a life was saved, probably. We don't know what the stabbing would have done, but we have every reason to believe the person would either have been terribly injured or died. But the woman in the Capitol was not killing anybody, was not stabbing anybody, was not shooting anybody. So they
She's in this frenzy, smashing her way into a secure area as part of a mob to get at members of Congress. She's clearly committing a crime, right?
Clearly committing a crime. Clearly, that is correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think that if it had been a white officer in the exact same circumstance entering the Salem, Oregon, or Portland, Oregon City Hall violently and been killed by a white cop, we would know the cop's name and the cop would have been dismissed from the police the next day. That's what I think. Well, but I just wanted to point out that there's at least one incident in which you just immediately called a cop a murderer. But, okay, so if I can move on to the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I just want to be clear. You've been talking about speech in the broader sense and the ACLU's defensive speech, and I am in agreement with you with regard to Nazis speaking in Skokie. I live in that area, and I certainly...
Oh, you got just 5 seconds. But the but is... All right. You know what? I'll keep you on. I feel bad.
Streaming on Salem Now.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. We know exactly what's going on here. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Kept telling myself, this is a guy who practically, literally and figuratively has been face down in the gutter. And this is a guy whose life, was at one point kind of hanging in the balance. So I know this year has been tough for you, but it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different, so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? And I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence because I have such confidence. I'm never gonna give up. When things that I believe in, I'm gonna stand firm. I'm not gonna buckle up to the cancel culture and the pressure and that's where great things come out of things. When you look back on things in life, I look back on things that happened to me. I look back and go, wow, if that hadn't happened, I might not be where I'm at now. So, right. I look back and I use those things as they were character builders. And
by the way, you I want people to read about your story and your character. This book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? You were gracious enough to let us auction off some of these books for the signed books for our prison fellowship Angel Tree campaign to send kids to summer camp. These are the children of prisoners in America who, for $200, are sponsored for an entire week to go to summer camp, not only to play, to be outside with other kids, but also hear the gospel.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
What makes the current ruling class in America different? My other very good friend, who also does a great job at Breitbart.com, has a new book out called Breaking the News. Alex Marlow, he filled in for us last week. I encourage all of you to check out that book, Breaking the News. Alex Marlow has been teasing this for months, saying that there is a new George Soros, saying that there's a new person on the scene that is spending just massive sums of money, almost unfathomable amounts of money, to try and remake America in the image that they so desire. I've been trying to get it out of Alex for months of who this person is, but he was very disciplined. I got to give Alex credit. He said, nope, I am not going to tell you who this person is.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
So I know this year has been tough for you, but it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO, and I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence, because I have such confidence. I'm never gonna give up. When things that I believe in, I'm gonna stand firm. I'm not gonna buckle up to the cancel culture and the pressure, and that's where great things come out of things. When you look back on things in life, I look back on things that happened to me. I look back and wow, if that hadn't happened, I might not be where I'm at now. So,
right.
I look back and I use those things as they were character builders, And
by the way, I want people to read about your story and your character. This book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? You were gracious enough to let us auction off some of these books for the signed books for our prison fellowship Angel Tree campaign to send kids to summer camp. These are the children of prisoners in America who, for $200, are sponsored for an entire week to go to summer camp, not only to play, to be outside with other kids, but also hear the gospel, learn the message of God's love. Mike, our listeners have donated over $175,000 to send these kids to summer camp in the last couple of weeks, and your book helped play a part in that.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
So Laureen Powell Jobs, or Lauren, however she pronounces her name, she is now, according to Alex Marlow, editor of Breitbart.com, the new George Soros, pumping millions and millions of dollars towards social leftist activist causes. And so I want to be very clear. She does not want to destroy America. She wants it to be hers. And it's not just her. There is an entire network of Jeff Bezos to Zuckerberg, of these oligarchs that are pumping in billions of dollars. Mark Zuckerberg put $400 million through the Center for Technology and
Hello, everybody. I hope you had a good weekend. I'm Dennis Prager. Something is troubling my producer. Are you untroubled?
I want to check.
I'm sorry?
Check on Father's Day.
Oh.
It's the night. Yeah,
it's on the 20th, so it's a week from this coming Sunday. Father's Day I'm talking about. But my video is out this week.
Yeah.
I do 1 out of 10 videos for PragerU. 90% are other people. And by the way, you should see, it's a really roster of very impressive people. Just last night I was reviewing a video that we'll be releasing from an epidemiologist at Yale. He's at Yale? Where's McCary? Oh, no, Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, he's not an epidemiologist.
He's a professor of medicine at Johns Hopkins. I consider it a coup to get this man. And he was proud to say, I'm doing this for PragerU at the end, Prager University. We're never attacked on substance because there is so much substance that the videos have. Anyway, the video this week is the case for the necessity of fathers. I'm told that there's already a great many hate-filled messages. Everything good and sweet and kind and noble is loathed by the left. Leftism isn't really an organized idea. It is opposition to what is good, what is noble. It is a loathing of civilized life. This has always been in the human condition. It is the root of anti-Semitism. As I make clear in my book, Why the Jews, both anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism have very similar roots. Anyway, I hope you'll watch the video. All right, let me finish with this call here. I very rarely take a call over the hour, but I always take people who differ, or nearly always, first. And if they're not obnoxious, I really keep them on, because it's important that you hear where people differ with me. So back to John in Chicago, who is not obnoxious. That's a backhanded compliment, isn't it? You could quote that sometime. You know, Dennis Prager said on national radio, I wasn't obnoxious. So, all right, so you were taking me on what was the last item that you mentioned about, it was a free speech issue.
Yeah, I called to mention a couple instances in which I thought you were hypocritical. The first being that you didn't wait for any assessment of use of force before calling a Capitol police officer a murderer.
I didn't say he was a murderer. I said it was murder. But it is not legally murder. That is entirely accurate, and I wait for a jury to do it. But you know what? And I'd like you to defend this. We don't even know the officer's name.
Right. So, I mean, I think that makes it even more interesting that you would just immediately refer
No,
to
it
the
makes
case
it
as
more
murder.
interesting that we don't know his name.
We don't really know the facts. But I mean,
you know why? Because
you didn't hesitate to reach for the word murder, Mr. Prager, did you? You didn't hesitate.
That's right. I don't know what that has to do with free speech, but you're right. I did not hesitate. Correct. Go on.
I'm just comparing it to the thing you criticized where somebody else
Yes, because the other case,
someone a murderer.
Right, the fact that you equate somebody going through a window with somebody stopping the stabbing of another human being does not speak well for you. You're not obnoxious, but you're not a clear thinker. Go. What's the second thing?
Okay. The second one is, given that the ACLU's mission is to defend free speech, I agree with you about a lot of what you said about the history of the ACLU. You yourself have portrayed yourself as being the victim of censorship by YouTube, and Donald Trump is the victim of censorship by social media. And if it is your position that it is wrong for people to suffer personally and professionally because of speech that is controversial or construed as hateful or inciting something, how do you square that with your disposition towards Colin Kaepernick, who has been absolutely silenced and professionally damaged because he expressed himself politically?
No, that is not true. The way you characterized it is absurd. He's being disciplined because he violated an NFL rule that you stand for the flag if you're a member of an NFL team. If you don't want to obey by NFL rules, don't join the NFL. It's as simple as that. What if he had burned? Let me ask you a question. What if he had burned an American flag during the national anthem? Do you think any it would have been right to take any action against him? Please answer me before you go on. Answer me before you go on, or you won't go on. If he burned a flag,
I will answer if you'll allow me.
I thought you were trying to avoid. Go ahead.
If he were to burn a flag before a football game, that would obviously be something he'd get fired for. Yeah, I don't.
So then what's the issue?
That.
So you think burning a flag during the national anthem does allow for his being fired, but not standing for the national anthem does not. So it's.
I think you are. I think you are misrepresenting the fallout that Colin Kaepernick suffered. He didn't just lose his job as a football player, sir. He was cast as a national pariah by the President of the United States.
Okay, we live in different countries, you and I. I really appreciate you calling. I gave you a lot of time. If he's a national pariah, then most Americans would love to be a national pariah. They will be among the richest Americans living to be a national pariah like Kaepernick. He's the chief spokesman for Nike. He had a gigantic billboard on Times Square. If he's a national pariah, I am a pretzel. He's a pariah among decent Americans, but only half the country thinks like me on this and not like you. You think he's heroic, not a pariah. Okay. Thank you for calling. Appreciate it. Poor thing. Poor Kaepernick. Oh, my God. We should all be so poor. Millions, of course. He's a hero to people like my last caller. All right. I was reading to you last hour about the conflict in the ACLU, and huge article in the New York Times, of all places. Credit to the New York Times. I wonder if the New York Times is not fearing that they have lost credibility. The only people who believe anything the New York Times says are leftists. Some liberals still do, obviously, because they're mesmerized. So you have to be left of center to believe anything the New York Times writes. Okay. But that's not a very good thing. Also, young people are not subscribing to the New York Times. Their future is not bright. So I have a feeling that they think they may have gone a little too far with saying America was founded in 1619 in order to preserve slavery. And that, or I should say, to make slavery and to preserve it, that was the purpose of the Revolutionary War. The article in the New York Times is not one you would have expected from the New York Times. The Civil War in the ACLU. A founder, Harvey Silverglate, had served on the board of the ACLU of Massachusetts. When you deal with campus hate speech, you know they most often won't file a brief with you, Mr. Silverglate said. Mr. Romero, he added, is not a liberal, he's a progressive. His ACLU prefers cause work. Whoa. There you go. He was on the board of the ACLU of Massachusetts and has called the head of the ACLU a leftist, not a liberal. See, this distinction I have been making to you, we have to tell every liberal in our life, are you a liberal or a leftist? Show them my video for 5 minutes. I give 6 examples of leftism and liberalism in disagreement. And show them my piece. Newsweek picked it up a couple of weeks ago. 32 questions to ask to figure out if somebody is a liberal or a leftist. At the University of Connecticut, 2 white students walking home late at night loudly repeated a racial slur. In the ensuing uproar, the university police arrested and charged the students with ridicule on account of race. The ACLU of Connecticut demanded that the university hire 10 black faculty and staff members and require a freshman course on ending racism on campus. It made no mention of the arrests other than to opine that the police force is an inherently white supremacist institution. Whoa. 2 days later, they issued a corrective. The students' conduct is not criminal. The First Amendment protects even offensive and hateful speech. So as an example of a battle within the ACLU. Police is an inherently white supremacist institution. There was a time when the ACLU had one job, protect civil rights. Back in a moment.
This is Albert Mogler for Townhall.com. The Supreme Court announced last week that it would hear an abortion case coming from the state of Mississippi. The case is Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, the infamous abortion clinic in Jackson, Mississippi, is challenging legislation that makes abortion illegal after the 15th week of a woman's term. If the law is upheld, lives would be saved. Lots of them. This is big news, but it's not necessarily the case that the court will reverse Roe v. Wade. I often refer to the cumulative case theory of the pro-life movement. That comes down to this: pro-life legislation and pro-life lawyers working to erode Roe v. Wade step by step, law by law, restriction by restriction, court precedent by court precedent. Make no mistake, this case is huge, and the precedent will be massive. The second issue is even more important. The Mississippi law, and thus this particular Supreme Court case, focuses on the life of the unborn child. That's the biggest issue here. We should watch and hope and pray for change from the courts. We also need to hope and work and pray for a change in human hearts.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Because in the last week, we've been treated to a number of stories, including this on the Washington Post headline: leading scientist says that without a full investigation of lab leak theory, the world will face COVID-26 and COVID-32. This is Baylor College of Medicine's Peter Hotez.
I am glad to see that he and so many other scientists and liberal reporters are finally acknowledged the basic common sense of our point a year ago, which is that this virus didn't emerge from some rural village. It came from a city larger than New York, right down the street from a lab where they research these viruses. I mean, surely your common sense should dictate we should at least look into that possibility. And that's what we should have been doing from the very beginning. And that's what all these skeptics from the very beginning should have been acknowledging, was at least a reasonable concern.
Well, I read one of his quotes from last year condemning, quote, QAnon and the Russians and the Murdoch media empire. And so I think to myself, when you're throwing those three things together, that is kind of a poker tell. Now, I don't want to indict or convict him of being a lab denier until I've done more research, but it does seem to me that people ought to pay a price if they were simply dismissive of this theory, and not only dismissive, downright obstructionist in its investigation last year.
Yeah, well, Hugh, if that's the case, and it should certainly reflect on someone who made such a silly comment. And it's also a reminder, too, that all of these supposedly neutral, scientific, nonpartisan so-called experts often harbor deep partisan antipathies towards their opponents.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins and bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Grovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this Pound 250, say Dennis Prager. You'll also save an additional 50% off your first month. That's pound 250 and say Dennis Prager. That's with your current phone. You can get a new phone through them too, by the way, at a great rate, whether it's an iPhone or Android. Pound 250, say Dennis Prager. There you go. It's an easy name. I'm very lucky. A lot of luck in life. Think about that a lot, actually. People, a lot of religious people are unhappy when I say that. But I think God knows that there's luck in life. I also believe that there's an afterlife where these things are worked out in some way, because God is good and just. But to deny, if you're hit by a drunk driver, it's your bad luck, right? You know, there's a guy talking about hit by a drunk driver. There is a guy in Southern California. How many cars did he shoot windshields with BBs? Hundreds, right? Are you familiar with that case? Yeah. And I don't know how they caught him, but they caught him. I thought of it because it's just your lousy luck if you're one of the cars who got hit. That's a pretty shattering thing, no pun intended at all, to happen. 3 counts of attempted murder? Cool. Hope the guy's put away for life. 100 vehicles? Mm-hmm. Shattered the windows, but he shot it more. This is what I mean when I say there are people we don't understand. So I always say, I understand a bank robber. Who doesn't understand a bank robber? Person wants money without working for it and doesn't have the conscience to stop them from robbing a bank. Is there anybody who doesn't understand that? Of course not. But I don't understand the desire to shoot BBs at passing cars. I have to admit, it's not an inclination that I have to fight. I have bad inclinations. I'm human. But I got to say, there are a lot of bad things that are done. I don't have those inclinations. And by the way, I also believe that philosophically, I don't think that in general, the right and the left understand each other. I don't understand how you can live in the United States of America and think that it is the cesspool that the left think it is. I think you have to have had your thought processes so perverted at college or high school that you have to be so angry and, above all else, ungrateful. The single most logical reaction to being American for the vast majority of humans here should be gratitude. People talk about white privilege. From the beginning, I said the ultimate privilege is American privilege, which is why so many people move here. If I could ask a leftist one question, and I might change my mind tomorrow, but right now, if I could ask a leftist one question, it would be this. Since you believe America is systemically racist, do you think that the millions of black Africans who have moved here in the last decades were stupid for doing so? Now, if they weren't stupid for doing so, that means it's not that systemically racist. I always give a really, 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 really powerful analogy. No Jews moved to Germany in the 1930s. Now, why is that? Why do blacks move to America, but Jews didn't move to Germany? Because Germany was systemically anti-Semitic. But America is not systemically anti-black. Unless you think Jews are smarter than black Africans. Though ironically, black Africans are doing incredibly well in the United States. One of the more successful immigrant groups. And why wouldn't they be? I've been to 20 African countries, been to Africa many times. I have a non-romantic love of Africa. I mean, I know how corrupt the countries are. So that's what I mean. It's not a romantic love. However, one meets so many sophisticated, bright people visiting Africa. And, I believe Africa will save Christianity. I mean, I'm putting my chips, I don't know what was the phrase, putting my money where my mouth is, or my mouth where my money is, or whatever. I mean, that's a bold prediction. Certainly save the Catholic Church. Between the one of the greatest Catholic thinkers, I don't remember his name, one of the greatest living religious thinkers, not just Catholic, is an African cardinal. When I compare him to the white European Pope currently, the current vicar of Christ on earth, I think the Catholic Church would have done a lot better with the African cardinal. Yeah, Robert Sarah, how did you know? Notice that? How did you know? How did you know? That was impressive. Oh, you're Catholic. Oh, this is the first time he's said that to me in the 72 years he's working with me. He's Catholic. No, when did you last, I don't want to put you on the spot, but when did you last go to church? 1619. He went to church when America was in the New York Times View founded. Oh, mein Gott. When, we got more to come up. 1-8-Prager-776. I'm Dennis Prager.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Hey, folks, I'm talking to Kevin McCullough. Tell us, what did you make of Kamala Harris when she posted "Have a great weekend" or something like that? The way I take it sometimes is I don't want to be like the left. When the people on the left say something really stupid, I don't want to pile on as though they're the devil. So when she said "have a nice weekend," we know it's because she's ignorant and it's bad as the vice president not to understand what Memorial Day is all about. But I kind of feel like I almost don't know what do I expect from these people, that she's never given a thought to Memorial Day, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And I think that she's a pragmatist in almost every area of life. I think she takes opportunities to advance herself. Even on this one post, it was a picture, it was a selfie, and she was with a selfie saying, "Enjoy a long weekend." Whereas my wife, who has a brother who is in forward duty right now. I have 2 deceased grandfathers who were World War II Navy. I've got 4 uncles who were in Vietnam and Korea. I've got a couple of cousins that served in Iraq. We view this weekend much differently than someone like Kamala, who I don't think ever served, has any desire to know much about service, whether it was flippant or whether it was sarcastic or whether it was intended to be just thoughtless. That I think any of those things are problematic, because what you're talking about is a nation that really does pay respect to its fallen war dead and says, we are only free today because of what you did in that moment.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I don't need lots of audits. I don't need forensic evidence by the bucket load. All I need to know is that in the 4 key battleground states, President Trump was winning before they stopped counting the votes. Then the GOP poll watchers were escorted out of the building, and magically a few hours later, when the voting started up again, those leads were somehow lost. And on top of that, we have governors across the nation who have arrogated to themselves the constitutional duties of the state legislatures and changed election law unconstitutionally. As such, the last election was fatally flawed, whatever the audits give us in minutiae. Is that you're the lawyer, you're the constitutional law professor. Have I missed any big pieces out?
Not at all. And the 2 words that I repeatedly said to the state legislatures were irredeemably compromised.
Yes.
And what that means is that they didn't need any more information than what they already had in the short weeks in the aftermath of November 3rd to recognize that the elections were irredeemably compromised, and as such, their obligation, their duty, their responsibility under the U.S. Constitution, their plenary authority, meaning exclusive, absolute, sole duty.
Not permission from the governor or the state secretary.
Their sole textual responsibility and obligation and power from the text of the U.S. Constitution is to the state legislatures to select the manner of the delegates to the Electoral College.
Okay, everybody, Dennis Prager here. And in Arlington, Texas, it's Patricia. Hello, Patricia.
Hello.
Hello. You're on the air.
Okay. Well, hello, sir.
Hi.
Can I ask you a favor before we start? Let me say what I have to say and don't talk over me, please.
It depends how long you talk.
I'm calling regarding the statements you made about America being a cesspool. People feeling that it's a cesspool. I don't think anybody really feels like it's a cesspool. I think they feel like there is systemic racism. And to compare African Americans to American black people is not apples. It's not apples to apples. That's apples to oranges, completely. The history that black Americans have had growing up and surviving America is completely different than somebody moving here now and reaping the goods. And I'm not saying that bad, saying all the hard work that's been done so far, which with much more to go. It's a completely different arena. So I don't understand how you can say that.
Okay, I let you speak. Now let me speak. I was saying something that you did not refute in any way, shape, or form. I said that if America were systemically racist against blacks, black Africans are stupid for moving here. Please refute that logic.
No, I don't think so. They are complete. The skin color doesn't matter as soon as they open their mouth and say something.
If you're anti-black, skin color doesn't matter? The Ku Klux Klan likes black Africans, but not black Americans?
Differences. You can kill a
Okay, you're
American
not answering
black
me.
person.
Yes, you can. That's irrelevant.
No, I just believe that what you said was completely off the mark.
So it's not systemically racist against blacks. It's systemically racist against blacks who were born here. I'm supposed to believe that. Okay, fair enough. You know I prefer clarity to agreement. American racists love black Africans and hate black Americans. I suspect that my caller went to college. Okay, I got another one who disagrees. Good. You see, I treat you nicely. Jim in Chicago, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, actually.
Good, good. Thank you for taking my call. I'm traveling, so
I hear you packing.
I apologize. I guess I wanted to tell you a couple things. One, I met you like 30-some years ago when we were both younger, and I enjoyed you, and I bought a bunch of your cassettes. Young people, I guess, don't know what those are anymore. But
what happened? Has he died? Yeah, I'm sorry there. I am sorry there, Jim. It's always difficult when I get this periodically. You know, I really used to like you. And I know exactly what it's about. They used to like me when they identified me with religion and happiness and the like. And then I decided one day to announce that the left is destroying Western civilization, and then they didn't like me. And I knew that would happen. Here's an interesting little tidbit of Prageriana. For decades, I was the second or third most widely booked lecturer in American Jewish life. Elie Wiesel was first, and when good things happen to bad people, the author, who was it again, Rabbi, me and names, who wrote When Bad Things Happen to Good People? Harold Kushner. Harold Kushner was second, and I was third. And then I became a very well-known conservative, and I was no longer booked by most Jewish places, which equates leftism with Judaism. So it is what it is. I disappointed these people. All right, everybody. A major product, one of the few that I asked to advertise on the show, because I know a lot of you suffer from tingling, pins and needles, and the like in extremities, specifically hands and or feet. I've had it in my feet, good part of my life. Many years ago, discovered specially made inserts. They worked. Then about 3 years ago, I read on the internet about Nerve Renew, decided to try it. To my shock, a year later, 8 months later, I threw away the inserts. So I asked Nerve Renew if they'd like to advertise. They have a very interesting offer. Try it for 2 weeks for free, and you have a 1-year money-back guarantee that it will work for your tingling in your hands or feet. NerveRenew.com.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
I'm almost speechless because after listening to your piece about Fauci's testimony, I went and read Nicholas Wade's memo, which I was remiss in not reading, and I was just flabbergasted. Look, I knew, and I said all last year, that it was possible this was an escape from a lab because the Chinese do billions and billions of dollars of all kinds of bio research. We know their safety protocols are lousy. We know they don't have any scruples about doing gain-of-function research, all the stuff we sweat over. They don't care about any of that. So, you knew it was a possibility. But when I went back and read, I'm sure you've read it, it's meticulously reported and argued. The guy ought to get a Pulitzer Prize. But one of the things he says in there is that Dr. Shi, who is the Chinese virologist who did the research, actually set out in the grant application that she was going to do gain-of-function research. Here's a quote from Wade's piece. He says, Dr. Shi set out to create a novel coronavirus with the highest possible infectivity for human cells. And she got the grant from the Echo Health Alliance, the leader of which, I didn't know this either, was the guy who organized the first letter in February of 2020, which from 27 virologists, which supposedly debunked the lab theory.
Yep. And so, Jim, the point is that I also had Dr. Fauci on the show. He denied it. I think the credibility is shattered because people don't know when to say, I don't know. There's no way Dr. Fauci knows what the grants say. He hasn't read that sub-grant, but he should know, and he does apparently know now.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
As Galileans, we witnessed his first miracle.
This is the most profound discovery in human history. This discovery proves that he is coming back.
Obama tore this country down. No one stood up to him. Nobody.
My parents didn't teach me that I was a victim.
And Uncle Tom is somebody who has sold out.
I will not pretend to be a victim in this country. I know that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
Most black people don't believe that other blacks can be independent, free thinkers.
When there's chaos, when there's pandemics, when there's riots, people think, where is God? God always manages to reemerge.
This Constitution.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Major piece that I have been reviewing periodically while going on to other subjects in the New York Times about the Civil War, that's my terminology, in the ACLU. Is it for free speech or is it left? Those are their words, not just mine. The left, that's the biggest division between left and liberal. Liberals are for free speech. Leftists have never been, ever, 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 ever. Anywhere the left takes over, from the Bolsheviks to Yale, there is a suppression of speech. There is no exception in the history of the left. By the way, one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but a big one is they can't handle it. You know, I did a fireside chat. For those of you who don't know, I do a fireside chat every week. It is extremely widely viewed. It's the minimum of 750,000 each week. And it's very, very widely noted, as it should be. It's a half hour of me talking in my home to you and taking questions overwhelmingly from young people literally all over the world. And I did my fireside chat about 3 weeks ago about a John Oliver program where he bashed Israel. And I played it and responded to his point by point, and constantly said, please come on my show, or I'll go on your show, or let's just debate this anywhere you want in the country, I'll go. I'll even pay all expenses for the debate. Of course, no response. Why don't they ever debate? The left never debates. Well, it's close. It's close to never as you can get. Think Charles Blow would debate Larry Elder? Just imagine that. It's inconceivable. This pompous ass at the New York Times. He's a blowhard. At MSNBC. He is truly an intellectual nothing. He's just angry. He's just bitter. But the New York Times publishes a lot of bitter, empty people. They're called leftists. And they never debate. Never. That's why they suppress free speech, because they can't answer it. I can undo 4 years of your kid's college in an hour and a half at that college. I can undo it if your kid is open to listening. Look at my speech at the University of Wyoming. It's on YouTube. Socialism makes you selfish. Vast audience. It was an overflow audience in a giant hall over into another hall. That's why they don't want us on campuses. We can undo 4 years of their drivel in an hour and a half. And I'm not the only one. Ben Shapiro is an example. Dave Rubin is an example. I feel bad when I start listing because, there's so many others. We're going to have Dinesh D'souza on next hour. He's an example. Heather McDonald is an example. Larry Elder's an example. And Charlie Kirk is an example. They don't want any of us there because it doesn't take long to undo nonsense. What we have lived this last year and a half. Masks outdoors is the ultimate example of pure, undiluted nonsense. I went into a Starbucks yesterday, and they said, "Would you please put on a mask?" And I said, what did I say? I liked my answer. I said, I will, and I will also take out my rabbit's foot. That's what I said. Since rabbit's feet have been shown to be as effective as masks in preventing COVID. There was no response. That is correct. There was no response. Here is an interesting thing, though. I have another thing, because I don't like to annoy people, except intellectually on the radio and in speeches. But I don't, a one-to-one basis, I don't enjoy that. So if I enter an elevator without a mask, I will immediately ask the masked person, "Would you like me to put on a mask?" In no instance has a person said yes. A lot of people wearing masks know it's nonsense, but they don't want to look different from others. It's social pressure, not science. When Brett Kavanaugh was nominated for the Supreme Court, the ACLU surprised longtime supporters by entering the fray, broadcasting a commercial that strongly suggested the judge was guilty of sexual assault. This is again the New York Times piece about what's happened to the ACLU. When a book argued that the increase in the number of teenage girls identifying as transgender was a craze caused by social contagion, a transgender ACLU lawyer sent a tweet that startled traditional backers, who remembered its many fights against book censorship and banning. Quote, "Stopping the circulation of this book and these ideas is 100% a hill I will die on." See that? The ACLU, this is a lawyer for the ACLU calling for the banning of books. Who was it who said, was it Heine, when they burn books, they will shortly thereafter burn people? It was a very famous quote. I don't know if it was Heine, the greatest German poet, who, by the way, 100 years before the Nazis said, I have this, you could look it up, just do Heinrich Heine, Dennis Prager, you'll see the quote. 100 years before Hitler took power, the greatest German poet, an unreligious Jew. Yes, there was Heine, where they burned books. So please know that Heine was right. And I'll tell you about the quote 100 years before, later. But know this, when they ban books, they will shortly thereafter ban people.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
So I want to get through a very important piece of news that happened. The Pelosi Commission. So for the last couple months, Nancy Pelosi, I think, has been intentionally slow-walking this. I think that Nancy Pelosi has been intentionally dragging her feet for months because Nancy Pelosi wanted a commission to look into January 6th, despite the fact that every single department of law enforcement right now is looking into it. She wanted this to be a later authorized commission so it would go into the election year of 2022 and hurt Republicans. So she did not want this to be an overnight thing. So she pretended as if she was negotiating with Republicans on this commission. And the more information that we get about January 6th, the more it looks like an interruption, not an insurrection. And I'm not supporting the smashing of windows or the assaulting of police officers. You lay your hand on a police officer, you should go to prison for a very long time. I'm not minimizing that. At the same time, who killed Ashley Babbitt? And why were there no charges against the person that fired a shot at Ashley Babbitt, who was unarmed? I thought that was the big mantra of BLM Incorporated. So for months now, Republicans have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi. When I say Republicans, I mean someone who is not even a Republican, someone who voted for impeachment. And so the commission is supposed to be like a 9/11 style commission to look in to the January 6th incident. But we all know how these things happen. This would be a Mueller style counsel that would be a roaming prosecutor.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Hey, folks, I'm talking to Kevin McCullough. Tell us, what did you make of Kamala Harris when she posted "Have a great weekend" or something like that? The way I take it sometimes is I don't want to be like the left. When the people on the left say something really stupid, I don't want to pile on as though they're the devil. So when she said "have a nice weekend," we know it's because she's ignorant and it's bad as the vice president not to understand what Memorial Day is all about. But I kind of feel like I almost don't know what do I expect from these people, that she's never given a thought to Memorial Day, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. And I think that she's a pragmatist in almost every area of life. I think she
There are clearly more liberals who are aware of this now. Another major liberal, Matt Taibbi, has written about this now. I'm going to quote him either today or tomorrow. Congratulations, elitists. Liberals and conservatives do have common interests now. That's correct. That's what I've been saying for a while. The focus on Donald Trump was the same thing as the focus on the insurrection and the focus on the Russian collusion and the focus on systemic racism. It is all to blind you while the left corrupts every institution. Last week I spoke about the State Department. At least 5 embassies put out the Black Lives Matter, a hate group flag. It's an astonishing thing. In the 60s, did any U.S. embassies put out the Black Panthers flag? By the way, elite liberals supported the Black Panthers. I have an extended section on the Leonard Bernstein fundraiser thrown in his home. He's the most prominent classical musician in America at the time. The guy who composed West Side Story, New York Philharmonic conductor, had Black Panthers at his home. America-hating blacks seem to be the only genuine blacks to the white liberal/leftist. If a black loves America, they're not an authentic black. This was the message given. So if you're a black and you want attention and money and support, are you going to say you love America? Or are you going to say you basically hate it? I'd like that argument from the caller earlier. American racists don't hate black Africans, only black Americans. We'll be back.
Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
So I know this year has been tough for you, but it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO, and I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence, because I have such confidence. I'm never gonna give up. When things that I believe in, I'm gonna stand firm. I'm not gonna buckle up to the cancel culture and the pressure, and that's where great things come out of things. When you look back on things in life, I look back on things that happened to me. I look back and wow, if that hadn't happened, I might not be where I'm at now. So,
right.
I look back and I use those things as they were character builders, And
by the way, I want people to read about your story and your character. This book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? You were gracious enough to let us auction off some of these books for the signed books for our prison fellowship Angel Tree campaign to send kids to summer camp. These are the children of prisoners in America who, for $200, are sponsored for an entire week to go to summer camp, not only to play, to be outside with other kids, but also hear the gospel, learn the message of God's love. Mike, our listeners have donated over $175,000 to send these kids to summer camp in the last couple of weeks, and your book helped play a part in that.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
So Laureen Powell Jobs, or Lauren, however she pronounces her name, she is now, according to Alex Marlow, editor of Breitbart.com, the new George Soros, pumping millions and millions of dollars towards social leftist activist causes. And so I want to be very clear. She does not want to destroy America. She wants it to be hers. And it's not just her. There is an entire network of Jeff Bezos to Zuckerberg, of these oligarchs that are pumping in billions of dollars. Mark Zuckerberg put $400 million through the Center for Technology and Civic Life into this last election. $400 million. Jeff Bezos, with his play money, owns the Washington Post, which propagandizes you and your children through Apple News. Thank you, Laureen Powell Jobs. So what you have here is a technology ecosystem that has been built through businesses of largely unearned wealth. Now, Some could say that Jeff Bezos earned his wealth. I think that's probably somewhat true. Do I think that he gamed the U.S. Postal Service? Yes. Do I think that he misleads the type of company he is? He's just a server company that loses money intentionally to take over other small businesses. But I think there's something fundamentally different about making massive sums of money in this new technology era and the ways that people made money in the early 1900s, 1950s, and 1980s. You see, technology has led to fast, immediate wealth creation.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Americans appreciate the concept of making it, easier to vote and harder to cheat. Maybe you've played a part in that, Mike Lindell.
Well, I've been working very hard on it, and that's what this cancel culture was all about. When I wanted to speak out for different things, especially that integrity, I was canceled out, and that's just not on the box stores and stuff. I've been canceled on every social media platform, or from your Facebook, Twitters, YouTubes, Vimeo, wow. So that's why we came up with our frankspeech.com, so that we can, have a place to talk, have a place to speak out. And
keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I mean, QAnon is dead. Q is completely discredited. But there are still people saying there's a plan and he can come back to be president before 2024. I have almost utter certitude, 95%, that he's going to run in 2024. And given the last 4 months, I don't mean to laugh. I think it'll be a shoo-in. He'll walk back into the White House if we do our job when it comes to election integrity. But to those who are saying he can be president now, that he can come back and he can take over the last 3.5 years of Biden's term, there's no process, there's no entity, it's not the Supreme Court, it's not a magic electoral, there is no functional scenario under which that happens, is there, Jenna?
Correct, and it is very unfortunate, and I have to preface this by saying I understand the utter frustration and the injustice of it all, and I am just as mad as everyone else. But what we have to understand is that we are a nation of rules, and our supreme law of the land is the U.S. Constitution. And because the Constitution provides that the Electoral College is our mechanism of selecting the president, the Electoral College voted, that was certified legitimately. So when you have a sitting president, and his name right now is Joe Biden, then the only way to remove a sitting president is through the impeachment and conviction process. And even if that happened to Joe Biden, which we know politically it won't, even if, in hypothetical theory land, that happened, the line of succession then under the 25th Amendment would trigger. And so there's no scenario by which you take an outside person
and just put somebody
and
else
put
in.
someone else.
Keep up.
One of the leading thinkers in the country, Dinesh D'souza, who is, of course, a filmmaker, best-selling author, and now a podcaster. You can hear him every day. You can subscribe to his podcast. How does one subscribe to your podcast, Dinesh?
Hey, thank you, Dennis. I really appreciate it. I'm enjoying doing it. I haven't done a daily. Well, I'm kind of in your business now, I suppose,
That's right.
doing a daily show.
Yep.
And I do it both in audio and video, and it's a lot of fun. I've done just crossed 100 episodes, so I guess you could say I'm now firmly in the saddle.
Firmly in the saddle. I don't remember hearing that phrase in a long time. Where are you living?
I live in the north part of Houston, one of the suburbs of
Okay, now
Houston.
I know why he said firmly in the saddle. That's it. The man's in Texas. Okay.
That's it.
Yes.
Later in this conversation, you might hear the phrase "all had and no cattle." That comes from the same state.
That's very funny. And how about y'all? Have you adopted y'all?
I have not adopted that yet. In fact, I always chuckle when people say that, because they not only say y'all, but they say things like, they use y'all like, I'm going to come over to y'all's house.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
I know. Well, let's just say that's not the British English I learned in Bombay, in elementary and high school.
From Bombay to Houston. God, what a life. What a life. Let's talk about the move for a moment. You were living in California, where I live. So what was the final straw? Why did you move?
Well, I actually married a Texan. Debbie, my wife, is originally from Venezuela, but spent most of her life in Texas. So we were kind of deciding between California and Texas, and a whole bunch of factors, convinced me that Texas is the place to be. One of them, of course, being the fact that I think Texas as a state is just run so much better than California. And another, quite honestly, was that it's easier to get around from Texas. You're more in the middle of the country, so
that's right.
in 2 to 3 hours you can hop to Florida, to Pittsburgh, to Oakland, you can get pretty much anywhere from Texas in a single shot.
Yes, and half the time as it takes from L.A. I'm well aware of that. It's a great advantage in that regard. Do you feel freer?
Absolutely. The thing about Texas is, I would say, it's almost like Texas is the kind of original American spirit, but it's kind of America in italics. So that Americans in general like the idea of being left alone, like the idea of having their own space, like the idea of speaking their mind. Well, Texans are kind of Americans, only more so.
So what is the current betting on what was apparently an issue? I don't know if it is. That's what I'm asking you, really, about Texas going blue.
In my opinion, Dennis, that is not going to be an issue for one simple reason, and that is that there is a big and very successful project underway to take Latinos and Hispanics who are already conservative-leaning but habitually Democratic, and turn them into good Republicans. And that is occurring with that's occurring with wonderful speed, and it's occurring deep in what could be called Blue Texas, which is the Rio Grande Valley. This is, by the way, where Debbie, my wife, grew up. She knows this area very well. And she said in the last 2 elections, she says, when she saw these Trump trains of Latinos stretching for miles, she goes, I never saw this in my life. I never saw it for Reagan. I obviously never saw it even for Bush, who was actually popular among Latinos in Texas. But nevertheless, Trump brought out something completely new. And just recently, I don't know if you saw, but in McAllen, Texas, which is right on the border, for the first time in I don't know how long, they elected a Republican mayor. This is, again, 80 to 90%. So if we get the Latinos in Texas, it doesn't matter if we get some crazy Californians and people from Seattle, because Latinos plus whites will lock the state of Texas red.
So who comprises the bulk of the Democrats of Texas?
Basically, the Democrats in Texas are the Latinos in the Rio Grande Valley. These are people who are LBJ Democrats. They've been voting Democratic for, 50 years or more. And the other is the cities. So, for example, inner city Houston, inner city Dallas, inner city San Antonio. This is basically where the Democrats get their votes. So the idea of tipping the state would be to lock in the Hispanics, lock in the cities, and then win over some suburban Texans over to the Democratic Party. But the reason it's not going to work is that the base, which is the Hispanics, are starting to drift. And so if the Democrats lose the Hispanics, they have absolutely no hope of winning Texas.
Well, Austin is not Rio Grande Valley, and it's not Hispanic. Why is Austin? Is it because of UT Austin?
Yeah, Austin is actually one of the smaller cities in Texas compared to, say, Houston and Dallas, which are just much, much bigger. And Austin has always been a little bit of a progressive, it's the same, Austin's like Ann Arbor, Michigan, or, it's like it's a college town that happens to be the capital of the state, and so it's left-wing, but it's been left-wing for a long time. So Austin is not really in that sense, not the heart of Texas. One of the sayings that they say in Austin, which is keep Austin weird. What they mean by that is keep Austin unlike the rest of Texas. So it's almost like you've got a little piece of Berkeley right in the middle of Texas.
You didn't mention the blacks in Texas, and the reason?
That they're not as significant a force as the Latinos. I mean, basically, Texas is tipped by the white vote and the Latino vote. So, unlike other places like Chicago and Illinois and other states where blacks are a decisive part of the vote. Now, there are a lot of blacks, for example, in inner city Houston. But if you look at the population of Texas as a whole, the worry was that since the Democrats were getting large portions of the Hispanic vote, it would be the Hispanics that would tip Texas into the Democratic column. And that's why I think the key issue for the Hispanics has basically been, do we want to go the way of the whites and the Asians, or do we want to go the way of the blacks? And I think that, in some senses, if you think about that question, it answers itself.
Right. And by that, let me spell that out. I think you mean the question really is, do we want to believe we're victims and the country keeps us down or not? Is that a fair summary of what that means?
Exactly. It also means that there is a known recipe for groups that are starting out at the bottom to make their way up the ladder. Every day we see immigrant groups, and by the way, I don't just mean, of course, the Orientals or the Asian Indians, but we see people from the West Indies, from Trinidad, from Nigeria, black immigrants coming to America. They follow a known recipe, and they improve their lives. So the idea here is you assimilate to the cultural requirements of success. Nobody's saying that you have to sort of, if you're Latino, you have to stop eating tacos or enchiladas or stop dressing a certain way. It's not about that. It's about your study habits and your savings rates and the way you organize your family and the importance you place on education and work and entrepreneurship and faith.
And everything you just mentioned is now declared to be white supremacist values.
Well, this is something that I think is a profound problem for the country in general, but specifically for the black community, because essentially what the left has done is literally redefine merit in its broadest sense. All the things you have to do to make your life better, and demonize those things as racist, as if to say, let's keep African Americans away from all these things. And think of what a destructive formula that is for a group that has already had so much historical hardship.
Exactly right. I want to remind everybody I'm speaking with Dinesh D'souza, who has a daily podcast and video cast, and one just, I guess, puts in your name and it comes up. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's on Apple Podcast and Google and Spotify. That's on the audio side. And on video, I put it up every day on YouTube and Rumble. So I got about half my audience that likes to watch it like a TV show, and the other half is, on the treadmill or driving and listening to it in audio.
How do you explain, if indeed this is true, how do you explain that there has been no censorship of you yet?
Well, I'm constantly sort of under surveillance by these platforms. And right now, for example, I'm demonetized on Facebook. They tagged as inaccurate my simple statement that Fauci has been contradictory in his advice on masks.
Okay, good. Stay there. That's both aspects are critical. Fauci and what Facebook is doing to you. Dinesh D'Souza, I'm Dennis Prager.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I don't need lots of audits. I don't need forensic evidence by the bucket load. All I need to know is that in the 4 key battleground states, President Trump was winning before they stopped counting the votes. Then the GOP poll watchers were escorted out of the building, and magically a few hours later, when the voting started up again, those leads were somehow lost. And on top of that, we have governors across the nation who have arrogated to themselves the constitutional duties of the state legislatures and changed election law unconstitutionally. As such, the last election was fatally flawed, whatever the audits give us in minutiae. Is that you're the lawyer, you're the constitutional law professor. Have I missed any big pieces out?
Not at all. And the 2 words that I repeatedly said to the state legislatures were irredeemably compromised.
Yes.
And what that means is that they didn't need any more information than what they already had in the short weeks in the aftermath of November 3rd to recognize that the elections were irredeemably compromised, and as such, their obligation, their duty, their responsibility under the U.S. Constitution, their plenary authority, meaning exclusive, absolute, sole
Not
duty.
not permission from the governor or the state secretary.
Their sole textual responsibility and obligation and power from the text of the U.S. Constitution is to the state legislatures to select the manner of the delegates to the Electoral College.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I was under a constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. We know exactly what's going on here. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Kept telling myself, this is a guy who practically, literally and figuratively has been face down in the gutter. And this is a guy whose life, was at one point kind of hanging in the balance. So I know this year has been tough for you, but it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different, so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? And I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence because I have such confidence. I'm never going to give up. When things that I believe in,
Hi, everybody. I want you to know that I began speaking despite the fact that my technical director did not signal me in any way, shape, or form. He was hoping I would read his mind, which I did. I want to remind you that there is a great film out. The Streets Were My Father. It's Lee Habib has put this together, and it is powerful statement about the only thing, in my opinion, that will ever work. And it's the one thing even conservatives, very, very few conservatives talk about. They have been intimidated, conservatives have, or convinced, many have, that God and religion are sweet but unnecessary. And that the word is necessary. An atheist can understand the power, the transformative power of belief in God, which only that can do, like with addicts and the entire AA program. So this movie is about people who have left gangs and who have adopted faith in God as a substitute for faith in the gang leader. It's quite a powerful film. Go to Salem Now. That's where, salemnow.com. That's where you can see it, salemnow.com. You can buy a copy or copies for anyone who doesn't have a father. It's about the need for fathers. The Streets Were My Father at salemnow.com. What happened to Dinesh? Dinesh D'Souza hath, maybe he thought that I was ending with that. But I did say, hold on. You never know. Such is the, what is it, man? Did you ever hear this, folks? Did you ever hear this saying? It's a bitter one. Man plans, God laughs. You ever hear that one? It's tough, isn't it? It's an old Yiddish saying. I don't know if it's in other languages as well. What is it? Man tracht und Gott lacht. Man plans, God laughs. In other words, I mean, it's bitter. Nobody thinks God's laughing at your plans, but it is a way of saying that life is not in sync with your plans. Just the way it is. We're getting Mr. D'Souza back. Dinesh D'Souza has a daily podcast and a video cast. And I was saying behind his back during the break, I've interviewed every major thinker, I think, living, or virtually every. And he is notable for many things, including when he speaks, and this is my aim in my own speaking, there's no fat. It's right to the core with whenever he speaks. Talking about Texas, where he now lives, and the freedom there. And now I was asking him, let's see if we have him back. No, we don't have him back. So I was asking him if he has been censored in any way by YouTube or Facebook or whatever. He's been demonetized by Facebook. What is it? You know what demonetized is better than I. You can't make any money. How would you make money otherwise? By charging subscription fees? What?
Depending on how many viewers you have.
Depending on how many viewers you have?
They pay you.
Oh, they pay you.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. And so I'll find out now. I'm very curious. All right, we got him back. Everything okay, Dinesh? I thought you were kidnapped.
Dennis, I'm so sorry. I actually thought that you did such a kind of, you closed with such a flourish. I thought we were done. So I hung up on my side. My apologies.
Okay, not an issue. You don't know. One has this imagination when somebody just disappears. Anyway, what is Facebook's rationale for demonetizing you?
The rationale is that I am supposedly presenting inaccurate information. So I mentioned the business about Fauci, but of course I'm not inaccurate. But see, what happens, Dennis, is they've got an army of left-wing fact-checkers. And these left-wing fact-checkers think that if you disagree with their interpretation, you disagree with facts, and therefore you're spreading misinformation. This is the basic way in which they operate. So a few months ago, I posted a clip of just Biden saying Antifa is an idea, and they flagged me, quote, lacking context. What context? That's what Biden said in the debate with Trump. So even quoting someone can be flagged as misinformation because supposedly I omitted some larger context that would clarify that Biden really didn't think that or thought something more complex than what I said.
The fact checkers are overwhelmingly just propagandists for the left, and nowhere more so than on the issue of quote-unquote science. If you quote a scientist that they differ with, you are delegitimized. If you quote a scientist.
The amazing thing, Dennis, when you look at this debate about the origins of COVID-19, the scientist that they were relying on is precisely a guy who has been involved in funded so-called gain-of-function research. In other words, taking deadly viruses and making them more contagious and more deadly. So you can imagine this guy's panic when he heard about the global pandemic because he realized that the blame could fall on him. So these guys then organized a group of virologists to send a letter to the Lancet magazine. They kept their own names off of it to prevent the connection being made that these are the guys actually doing this research. So the whole thing was kind of an orchestrated con job, I'm sorry to say, by prominent scientists themselves, but Facebook went along with it. They essentially took the lie and treated theories that legitimately inquired into the origins of COVID as being debunked, as being conspiracy theories, even though they were anything but. There never has been one shred of evidence that this virus came out of a meat market in Wuhan.
That's right. So they're doing nothing to rescind their claiming that those claims were conspiratorial.
What happens these days, it's very Orwellian, is that both for digital media and for mainstream media, they never admit anything. They go back and stealth edit their earlier statements. There are a number of cases where the Washington Post makes flagrantly erroneous statements, and they go back and edit them so that it appears like they were never wrong in the first place. But there's no admission, no acknowledgement, no humility, no we'll do better in the future. They pretend like they were never wrong originally.
All right, now, do hold on. We are not letting you go. Dinesh D'Souza has a podcast. You should see it and listen.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
What makes the current ruling class in America different? My other very good friend, who also does a great job at Breitbart.com, has a new book out called Breaking the News. Alex Marlow, he filled in for us last week. I encourage all of you to check out that book, Breaking the News. Alex Marlow has been teasing this for months, saying that there is a new George Soros, saying that there's a new person on the scene that is spending just massive sums of money, almost unfathomable amounts of money, to try and remake America in the image that they so desire. I've been trying to get it out of Alex for months of who this person is, but he was very disciplined. I got to give Alex credit. He said, nope, I am not going to tell you who this person is.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
So I know this year has been tough for you, but it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different, so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? And I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence, because I have such confidence. I'm never gonna give up. When things that I believe in, I'm gonna stand firm. I'm not gonna buckle up to the cancel culture and the pressure, and that's where great things come out of things. When you look back on things in life, I look back on things that happened to me. I look back and wow, if that hadn't happened, I might not be where I'm at now. So,
right.
I look back and I use those things as they were character builders,
Yeah. And by the way, I want people to know, to read about your story and your character. This book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? You were gracious enough to let us auction off some of these books for the signed books for our Prison Fellowship Angel Tree campaign to send kids to summer camp. These are the children of prisoners in America who, for $200, are sponsored for an entire week to go to summer camp, not only to play, to be outside with other kids, but also hear the gospel, learn the message of God's love. Mike, our listeners have donated over $175,000 to send these kids to summer camp in the last couple of weeks, and your book helped play a part in that.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
So Laureen Powell Jobs, or Lauren, however she pronounces her name, she is now, according to Alex Marlow, editor of Breitbart.com, the new George Soros, pumping millions and millions of dollars towards social leftist activist causes. And so I want to be very clear. She does not want to destroy America. She wants it to be hers. And it's not just her. There is an entire network of Jeff Bezos to Zuckerberg, of these oligarchs that are pumping in billions of dollars. Mark Zuckerberg put $400
Boy, is that true. Dinesh D'Souza has a podcast now, daily. It's very successful, as you would imagine, and easily found on many platforms. So we were talking about the issue with medicine and its corruption. So Dinesh, react to this, and you know me well enough to know it's fine if you don't agree with me. I have told my listeners something I never expected to say, that in the last year and a half, the number of realizations I've come to make me wonder about my grasp of reality prior to the last year and a half. I now regard every major American institution, including medicine, and the State Department, and the CIA, and the FBI, as corrupt. Is that overstating the case?
I'm afraid not. I think, Dennis, you and I have gone around the same path. We grew up and we embraced a civics book idea of America. Mm-hmm. I used to think of American politics as a kind of an honest debate between two sides that had competing ideals and were presenting this before the American people, who would then decide, this time we'll go with these guys and that time we'll go with these guys. And it wasn't until I had my own case with the Obama administration, I saw how those guys behaved, across the conference room table, you might say. And then I realized that I'm dealing with people who have become completely gangsterized, who view the law as a mechanism to take your opponent out. And then I saw that was magnified with Flynn and with Trump, and it's been really dismaying to see the ways in which, as you say, neutral institutions, neutral police agencies. I mean, my idea of the FBI kind of came from the movie The Untouchables. These kind of guys who are going after the bad guys and shutting down the mafia. My idea of medicine, you know, you have this wonderful idea that medicine or even digital media, think about when digital media first came on the scene, many conservatives thought this is our refuge from mainstream media. Mainstream media is so biased, this way we get to speak on platforms where we can say what we think, we can engage in debate, and suddenly these platforms have turned on us. So, yeah, I've had the same sinking feeling that the institutions of trust have forfeited their own credibility, and we have that feeling of vertigo, of being sort of dropped. All that is solid melts into air, to quote Karl Marx.
Tens of thousands of people in the medical profession announced last year, in the middle of the year, in the middle of the lockdown, that it was a health benefit to demonstrate against racism. Remember that?
Yes. I remember that, and I think that's where Fauci, you know, Debbie, my wife, is a bit of a germaphobe, and she has always kind of liked Fauci because she thought, listen, this guy's a little bit severe, but he's telling us the fact of the matter. He didn't, you know, there's a virus and we have to deal with it. But the moment Fauci basically changed his tune when it came to the Black Lives Matter protests and the George Floyd protests, Debbie realized this guy's just a pawn in which, you know, he says the same thing to one group and then he refuses to apply the same standard when it comes to the other side. So this means that he's not being a real doctor. He's essentially a politician masquerading as a doctor.
By the way, for the record, this will crack you up and maybe even slightly lower me in your esteem. I'm a germophile.
Well, you know what? There is a scientific case to be made for exposure to germs. I don't know if you've heard George Carlin's routine on this. Why germs are good, because they make you tough.
Yes, exactly correct. So I just thought I'd mention that. So, have you taken a stance on the ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, zinc issue?
You know, no, I haven't. And part of it was that, you know, people that I know that jumped into this debate early on all got promptly kicked off social media. And I thought to myself, I've never seen anything weirder, in which you even have credentialed doctors being banned by, you know, man-bunned fact-checkers on Twitter and Facebook who know nothing themselves, but in a sense are just apparatchiks carrying out orders. So this is a very dismaying situation. I just said to myself, look, I don't know enough about hydroxychloroquine. Why would I jump into this debate, which I don't know that much about, and essentially blow myself up over an issue in which I myself don't have the requisite expertise.
Right. Okay, we'll continue on that. Dinesh D'Souza has a podcast and videocast up at many platforms. And you should enjoy it. He's very enjoyable aside from knowledgeable and provocative. I did take a position, by the way, on ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, so we'll continue that discussion in a moment. ReliefFactor.com. This is a miracle supplement. I can't say drug because drug is too heavy a word and it sounds like it's a prescription. It's not a prescription. And it is it's so effective that you hear their ads constantly. That means people are buying it. That means that they buy it again because it works again. If you have joint or muscle pain, give it a try for 3 weeks, because they say that if it doesn't work in 3 weeks, it probably won't work. How's that for honesty? $20, that's it. $19.95 for 3 weeks plus shipping at ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384. Well, I wonder what he thinks of the vaccine. I wonder if he's
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Kept telling myself, this is a guy who practically, literally and figuratively, has been face down in the gutter. And this is a guy whose life, you know, was at one point kind of hanging in the balance. So I know this year has been tough for you, But it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO, and I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence, because I have such confidence. I'm never gonna give up. When things that I believe in, I'm gonna stand firm. I'm not gonna buckle up to the cancel culture and the pressure, and that's where great things come out of things. When you look back on things in life, I look back on things that happened to me. I look back and wow, if that hadn't happened, I might not be where I'm at now. So
right.
I look back and I use those things as they were character builders.
Yeah.
And
by the way, I want people to read about your story and your character. This book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? You were gracious enough to let us auction off some of these books for the signed books for our prison fellowship Angel Tree campaign to send kids to summer camp. These are the children of prisoners in America who, for $200, are sponsored for an entire week to go to summer camp, not only to play, to be outside with other kids, but also hear the gospel.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
What makes the current ruling class in America different? My other very good friend, who also does a great job at Breitbart.com, has a new book out called Breaking the News. Alex Marlow, he filled in for us last week. I encourage all of you to check out that book, Breaking the News. Alex Marlow has been teasing this for months, saying that there is a new George Soros, saying that there's a new person on the scene that is spending just massive sums of money, almost unfathomable amounts of money, to try and remake America in the image that they so desire. I've been
I have really immersed myself in the COVID issue. I believe, as do some epidemiologists, that American doctors, along with Google, Facebook, and the others, killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. I have never said anything remotely like this. I do believe that ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and vitamin D would have been both a therapeutic and a prophylactic. And for reasons that I still do not fully understand, other than the emotional reaction to President Trump saying something good about hydroxychloroquine, I don't understand why doctors committed to saving lives would not have advocated this.
Well, Dennis, can I comment on that?
That's why I'm quiet. Absolutely.
Yeah, let me say something that's sort of not directly responsive, but sort of a corollary to what you just said. One of the most striking features of the Vanity Fair article, and of course it's very unbelievable that Vanity Fair has done this.
Shocking.
This 40-page in-depth expose that is full of sources and detail and new information. But the point I want to make is that the hero of the Vanity Fair piece is actually Trump, right? In other words, Trump is the one guy who said early on, this probably came from a lab. And now there's all kinds of genetic and scientific signatures and evidence, and the Wall Street Journal has 2 world-class epidemiologists on this yesterday. But interestingly, if you read the Vanity Fair article, they give no credit to Trump. In fact, they acknowledge that part of the reason that there's been a public reluctance and a scientific reluctance and a media reluctance to admit the obvious has been because Trump said it. And so I think that with hydroxychloroquine also, we have lived through such a deranged political period in which if Trump says up, they say down. If he says back, they go forward. And so they've defined reality as the very opposite of what Trump says.
That's right. That's a fair response. But anyway, just for your interest, I'm sure you'll just find this interesting, not necessarily important. I and my wife and I have been on hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and ivermectin for nearly the entire period of the lockdown. I personally, from the outset, hugged strangers unmasked at hundreds and hundreds, at rallies to open up Los Angeles, at rallies for freedom, at rallies on behalf of restaurants, and more recently a rally on behalf of Israel, and just hugging strangers. I had 2 members of my household who had COVID. We practiced no social distancing. I have not had a sniffle in the past year and a half, nor has my wife. It's anecdotal. I fully acknowledge that, but the anecdote is the product of reading the science. I think that just as it has come out that COVID was invented by a lab, so it will come out that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin work. And at that point, then the manure will hit the fan, because then we will have to ask the question, why didn't doctors whose oath is to do no harm, why did they not advocate this as a therapeutic and instead put people on ventilators? I think that if you think the COVID origins are an issue, wait till this comes out, because there are many dead Americans, in my opinion, because of what the medical community failed to advocate.
Well, there is a very telling clue in the Vanity Fair article that is not highlighted, but I want to highlight it here. And that is that when Peter Daszak and Ralph Barrick, the 2 kind of gain-of-function research guys, were trying to figure out how to get the entire scientific community on their side, what they realized is that the government grants that were being processed through the EcoHealth Alliance, which happens to be Barrick's group, these groups funnel out these grants in the form of sub-grants to a whole bunch of virologists around the country. So this guy at Berkeley gets this, and this guy at Stanford gets that. So all these guys are in the back pocket of where the money is coming from. So when these guys then say, sign this letter, you get all these supposedly objective people with academic credentials saying, yeah, I'm on board, even though what they really mean is, you're paying me, and therefore I'm signing. And then the chief signers, who are directly connected with Wuhan, will keep their names off the letter. So what you're seeing here is how scientific consensus gets manufactured. There's no real consensus. It's not that the virologists really agree, but they're able to create this idea that we all agree, and then it scares all the other virologists into conformity, because none of them want to be cut off from the pipeline of where the money is coming from, and the money is usually coming from the U.S. government.
And pharmaceutical companies. Another realization, I had defended the big pharma my whole life, speaking about how many lives they have saved, which is true. But now I've come to realize the corruption there. There is no money in ivermectin. There is no money in hydroxychloroquine. There is no money in vitamin D. there are hundreds of billions of dollars in a vaccine. So it's hard to believe that did not play a role. Anyway, did you want to say something? Because we only have a few seconds.
Well, yeah, I wanted to say that I think that is the carrot, which is to say the prospect of making huge amounts of money. But I think there's also a stick, which is to say there was a deep element of fear. Try to think of what happened, to the nuclear industry in the aftermath of Chernobyl, right?
Yes, all right, hold on. One more segment with Dinesh D'souza.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
So I know this year has been tough for you, but it's not like Mike Lindell, has failed to survive challenges in the past. It isn't like you haven't faced adversity before.
Right. It's almost like God prepared me for such a time as this. I have faced different so many things in my life. It's in my book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO, and I think that's also what gives my employees and all my family, it gives them confidence, because I have such confidence. I'm never gonna give up. When things that I believe in, I'm gonna stand firm. I'm not gonna buckle up to the cancel culture and the pressure, and that's where great things come out of things. When you look back on things in life, I look back on things that happened to me. I look back and wow, if that hadn't happened, I might not be where I'm at now. So,
right.
I look back and I use those things as they were character builders,
Yeah. And by the way, I want people to know, to read about your story and your character. This book, What Are the Odds from Crack Addict to CEO? You were gracious enough to let us auction off some of these books for the signed books for our Prison Fellowship Angel Tree campaign to send kids to summer camp. These are the children of prisoners in America who, for $200, are sponsored for an entire week to go to summer camp, not only to play, to be outside with other kids, but also hear the gospel, learn the message of God's love. Mike, our listeners have donated over $175,000 to send these kids to summer camp in the last couple of weeks, and your book helped play a part in that.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
So Laureen Powell Jobs, or Lauren, however she pronounces her name, she is now, according to Alex Marlow, editor of Breitbart.com, Soros, pumping millions and millions of dollars social left.
All right, everybody, final segment here with Dinesh D'souza. Dinesh, what's your take on the Arizona recount?
I'm kind of watching it very closely because, as you know, the left has been putting out this idea, most secure election ever. There's absolutely no evidence of any kind of systematic fraud. Yeah, there may be an episode here, an episode there, but nothing to add up to anything. And the problem, I think, for our side, Dennis, is that this issue has never been properly adjudicated. We've never had a full audit that looks and says, oh, yeah, Democrats, you're right. This was actually a very sound election. election. So Arizona is trying to do it. I know there's a big fight about it, and the left has been trying to block it, and the Biden people have been threatening them up and down the whole way. I'm just hoping that we get a close look at things and a legitimate audit so we can actually look to see if these claims of fraud have any merit to them.
I say the following not as an argument, but as a sincere statement. If I or a loved one were accused of something awful, the thing I would most want, if I were innocent, is the best possible investigation to clear my name. Wouldn't it help America if we found that the likelihood of fraud in the election was minimal? Isn't that a good thing?
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that the behavior of the left and the Democrats is so suspicious. I mean, think of it this way. Imagine a store that has complaints that there has been chronic shoplifting, right? And the store isn't sure who did it. So the store says, hey, listen, let's establish some surveillance cameras and let's try to have some security and let's try to make sure that going down the road in the future, this problem can be minimized. And then there's a huge uproar and people say, oh, no, don't do that. This will discourage people of color from shopping in this store, make all kinds of ridiculous obstacles. Right away, the store would go, what possible motive could people have from wanting to block efforts to continue the shoplifting other than the fact that they are the shoplifters themselves?
That would seem to be the case. All right, my friend. I was going to have you on one segment, then 2 segments, then 3, and then 4, and we ended up with 5. You do this to me every time.
Well, Dennis, it's such a pleasure, and I'm delighted to have this time with you. And we've covered 2 or 3 important topics, and there's so many more left. But thank you for having me, and I urge people to check out my podcast. I've done the books, the movies, and speeches, but all of those are periodic. I've never really had a regular forum, and now I do, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and so are the viewers and listeners. Good luck to you on it, and I know you will have it. Dinesh D'Souza's podcast. I'm Dennis Prager, and I will see you tomorrow.